The opinions and statements expressed in the following program do not necessarily reflect those of WWDB, its staff, or management.
And welcome to another edition of Live on Tape with Pete Tribuco on WWDB AM 860 Talk Radio Philadelphia. I'm Pete Tribuco. I'm here along with my engineer, Joshua. Joshua, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Pete. How are you doing?
Doing good. Beautiful Saturday we have here, and I really am great that I've got you. I mean, it's been a while since I've had you as my producer. In fact, the last time I think it was a comedian, Rich Little, that you were involved with me. So we do really appreciate that. Really good job.
I have fond memories of that show.
It was a great show, and Rich Little is as funny as can be. Do you like sports?
Soccer and volleyball.
Okay, but not football, baseball, or anything along those lines at this point, or anything like that, okay? No?
Not really.
Wow, you're an exception to the rule. Why do you like soccer so much? I'm just curious.
Civilized rules.
Okay.
And because I'm bilingual in French.
Oh, really? I did not know that. Wow, I did not know that. So can you say something in French real quick? Yeah, that's clean, of course. Go ahead. Say something.
C'est très facile de parler en français. Qu'est-ce que tu veux me dire?
Okay, what did that mean? What did that say?
That's very easy to speak in French. What do you want me to say?
Okay, fine. All I know is voulez-vous français, whatever. I don't even know. So anyway, yes, we have a guest on. That's amazing. Okay, just an amazing woman, amazing person, amazing newscaster, amazing in every way. And I use that word because it's that important. We have Lisa Guerrero on. She is American journalist, an actress, former sportscaster, artist. She's got books out, model, and she's done a whole bunch of things. And she's currently the chief investigative correspondent for Inside Edition. We're just so glad to have her. Lisa, how are you today?
Good. Thanks for having me, Pete. And it's Lisa Guerrero, by the way.
Guerrero.
Last name.
Oh, what did
Guerrero.
I say? Okay, Guerrero. Okay.
I don't know what you said. You were still speaking French or something. I don't know.
Probably. Well, Lisa Guerrero, okay. We're glad to have you on with us today. You have done so many different things, okay? And it's really hard to go through all of them in about 40, 45 minutes. But let's try. You originally started out, when you first started, what did you do? Were you, I see you were a cheerleader at one point in your career. What was the very first thing that you did that got you into this entire industry that you're in now?
Well, at 15, the very first thing I did was I booked a National Ford Ranger commercial as an actor.
Okay.
And that's what got me into SAG and AFTRA, which is I'm proud to be a union member. So I'm a union girl, joined SAG and AFTRA as an actor at 15 years old. I'm now 49, so I have been a union member for decades. And really proud of that affiliation with SAG and AFTRA. So at 15, I became an actress, officially a professional actress, and did over 200 commercials and many guest star appearances on television shows and movies. Started out with small roles on things like Matlock and In the Heat of the Night in the 80s, and then graduated to bigger roles in the 90s. And eventually became a lead on Aaron Spelling's NBC show called Sunset Beach, where I played the villainess, and her name was Francesca, and that was a lot of fun. So Sunset Beach was my first big leading role in a TV show. At the same time, I was a sportscaster locally for CBS in Los Angeles, and then rose pretty quickly through the ranks of sportscasting to regional and national sports, and ended up as the sideline reporter on Monday Night Football on ABC in 2003 or 4. Oh my gosh. Boy, it's just, the time has flown. 2004.
No, that's amazing. But you left out something. You left out the guest starring appearance in Frasier, and that was a pretty interesting episode when he meets you at the airport. And you can tell us that story if you want as well about how that you were actually with I guess the lead there, and you were supposed to be a regular, I think, at one point. Tell us that story.
Well, one of the opportunities I had as an actor was I was cast as a guest star in 2 episodes of Frasier, and he meets Joanna. My name was Joanna in the episodes. And he meets me at an airport, stalks me onto an airplane, and then I realized that this guy isn't actually going to Mexico for fun. He's going to Mexico because he saw me in the airport and followed me on the flight.
Okay.
So I quickly changed seats, and that is a season finale.
That was a finale, yes.
The first, and then the series premiere the next season was me still on the plane. So I was supposed to get a guest star role out of that. But what happened was something so strange and very Hollywood, where one of the producers of Frasier met Celia Ward at a celebrity event. And Celia Ward said, "Oh, I've always wanted to be on Frasier. I have next week available." And so they bumped me for Celia Ward. And of course, I was just a lowly, brand new newbie actor.
Okay.
So she took my guest starring role, and I got a little bit part out of it. But it's one of those things where you go, okay, when you're in your teens and 20s and you're just starting out in the business,
yeah,
there are other people that are veterans that have been around a long time that have star power. And sometimes those things happen. And eventually, if you stick around long enough and you're in the business long enough, then you become one of the series regulars or stars on the show. And, you know, it's a really good life lesson about patience and hard work and work ethic. Just keep at it, work hard, no matter what it is, whether it's acting, business, you know, whatever you chose to do with your career. You know, one of the things I tell young people is you've got to be willing to work hard and be patient. Your time will come. And mine did.
Well, that's good to know. That's great to know. Also, looking at your Wikipedia page, you were actually entertainment director for the Atlanta Falcons, the New England Patriots, and of course Sunset Beach, and that was a great series. I remember seeing that series. It was actually great. What was that experience like? Sunset Beach.
Sunset Beach was incredible. I had actually auditioned for a different role. Again, another great lesson that I write about in my book, Warrior, My Path to Being Brave. In my book, I recount all of these stories. And the reason why I do that is I want people to know that most people that find success in Los Angeles and Hollywood and journalism and acting and entertainment, it doesn't happen overnight. There are a lot of steps that you go to before you find your space and your place. And so in my book, I write about this crazy audition I had for Aaron Spelling for this TV show, Sunset Beach on NBC. I had auditioned for another role, the role of Maria.
Okay.
And I didn't get the role. And the reason why I didn't get the role, I found out later, is that Aaron Spelling, the producer, saw my videotaped audition, and he said, "She doesn't look like a victim." And Maria was a victim. And he said, "She looks like she is a strong personality. She has a strong image, and I'm going to write a role specifically for her." So they ended up writing this other role for me, which was much better than Maria, Francesca Vargas, who was a villainess and a jewel thief and a homewrecker, and she had all the funny lines, and she was in all these fantastic scenes. So I ended up getting the better role. Again, this goes back to all of the lessons I talk about in my book, Warrior, which is about fighting through obstacles and challenges, being patient and really honing in on what your skill set is and what makes you different and unique. And those are the things that will fire success for you in your life.
Wow, that's really good. And where can we purchase this book? Because I want to make sure that we know. Obviously, we can get it at the bookstores, but is there also a website that's attached to it or anything like that?
Warrior, My Path to Being Brave is available everywhere. So it's at all bookstores. It's also available at Amazon. So
Okay.
if you go on Amazon, it was an Amazon bestseller when it came out a few months ago in 2 or 3 different categories. And it has had stellar reviews and ratings. it's really been well received. So Warrior, My Path to Being Brave, you can find at Amazon bookstores, and also it's available on audiobooks. And a lot of people, Pete, read audiobooks, and I actually narrate my own book. And it's a very emotional way to hear the book because I talk about my challenges and, the successes that I've had and the lessons you can learn. But I think when the author reads their own book, it makes it even better. So I read my own book on audiobook, and that's available everywhere as well.
Oh, that's great. That's something else, But by the way, I'm looking at, again, the page here, and I noticed that you were actually you did superhero film Batman Returns. And that basically, I guess, with the Penguin, Danny DeVito, you were involved in that too as well. It looks like in 1992. Yeah, I'm telling you, you're burying the lead. I'm a Batman fan. I love Batman. And you were actually in that too as well. Is there anything that you can't do, Lisa? I don't know, man.
Not a good cook.
Oh, okay. Well, that's okay. I mean, that's fine. I think you could probably basically just go out every night and just have a good time with that. But I'm looking at your background here. I want to go over the sports end because I'm a sports guy. I played ball. I actually tried out with the Mets in '82. They cut me, but at least I was able to get to that level. And it was a lot of fun, going to spring training and doing all that stuff. How did you get into? I know obviously you did a lot of different things here, but what interests you about sports to become a sport? And I know you started, I guess, sports locally, but what interests you about sports that you wanted to do it and become a full-time announcer doing that?
Well, I was a sports fan. My dad raised me. My mom died when I was 8. She was 29 years old.
Oh, I'm sorry.
My dad raised my dad raised my little brother and I. And my dad was a sports fan. So he taught me early about the value of sports and the language of sports. So my dad and I really bond through sports. I grew up in San Diego. He took me to Chargers games, Padres games. And through that experience, I decided when I was a kid that I wanted to be a quarterback for the Chargers. And my dad never told me that girls can't be quarterbacks. He taught me instead how to throw a perfect spiral. So I grew up being a tomboy and playing sports. When I got older, I became a Rams cheerleader. I had also been in dance class and wanted to be an actress. And so I tried out for the Rams and made it when I was still a teenager. And through that experience of playing sports and being a professional cheerleader, I realized that I had an opportunity, a really unique opportunity, to be one of the first female sportscasters in Southern California. And in fact, when I got assigned by CBS 2, I was the first woman that they had ever signed to a sports contract. And I was the first Latina on Monday Night Football. I was the first Latina on many of the networks and sports shows that I reported for, and I was a real barrier breaker back then. So I started in sports in the 80s and 90s when there weren't a lot of women in the locker room. And I was able to gain a lot of notoriety and respect by getting hard-to-get interviews with some tough athletes, including Barry Bonds, Randy Johnson, Alex Rodriguez, Mia Hamm, Nomar Garcia-Parra, Terrell Owens, and Shaq and Kobe. When they weren't talking to the media, they had a media boycott. I got both of them to sit down with me. So I worked really, really hard as a sportscaster back in those days, knowing that the spotlight was on me as a woman. And so I was able to move really quickly from local to regional to national prominence as a sportscaster.
That's an amazing story. In fact, you probably, created the way for all people that are doing this now. One of my producers here is actually Haley Simon, and she actually follows you because she's doing a lot of that stuff now. She's doing a lot of the interviews with on this radio station. We have a sports radio station that's here as well, And she's actually starting to get to that level where she's interviewing all these athletes and stuff along those lines. And I think a lot of it's credited to you, to people like yourselves that have opened the door, smashed that glass ceiling and gotten to the next level. We are talking.
Well, I need Haley to read my book, because any young woman considering getting into sports or journalism or entertainment really needs to read my book, because I talk about boundaries, red flags to look for, and ways to develop your own voice, to speak in your own voice and to be authentic to who you are. Really important.
Well, I am sure to get that to her, because unfortunately she's not here for this particular taping. She's on vacation, but when she comes back, I'm going to definitely mention that. And yes, I think it would be a great thing. I think she would enjoy it. I know I would enjoy it too as well. So I'll get 2 copies, not 1, but 2 copies of the bill. So because I got a 26-year-old daughter who likes entertainment as well and getting involved in that. So that would be great. We are talking with an amazing person, amazing woman, American journalist, actress, and former sportscaster, Lisa Guerrero, and we'll be back with Live on Tape right after this. Each year, 5,000 people, including children, choke to death. LifeVac can stop these senseless tragedies. It's so easy to use also. Simply place the mask over face, push, and pull. You'll never regret having a LifeVac in your home or office. Please visit lifevac.net today to protect you and your loved ones. Or you can call them at 877-LIFEVAC. That's 877-LIFEVAC.
Disability is not inability. A person's ability may be different, but still an ability. No matter one's race or age, no matter one's physical or mental condition. We all have limitless possibilities. For more than 100 years, Easter Seals has helped the 1 in 4 people with disabilities in America live, work, learn, and play. I'm Angela Williams, CEO of Easter Seals.
For more information, visit easterseals.com.
My daughter Brinley is here at St. Jude. Coming here was literally life or death, and it was so scary. But St. Jude is fighting for one goal, like this one mission, life. And that gave us hope. We haven't received a single bill from St. Jude, so I really can just focus on what's best for Brinley.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
And welcome back to Live on Tape with Pete Tribuco on WWDB AM 860 Talk Radio. We are talking with American journalist, actress, former sportscaster, artist, and model. And since 2006, this individual has actually been the chief investigative correspondent for Inside Edition. Thank you so much, Lisa Guerrero, for being on the show with us. We do appreciate it. And tell us more about your story with sports, because I tell you, you started out doing sports, and you. When did you know you were really good at it to the point where you were going to get to the top level? That happened early, or did you have to work to get there?
I don't think I ever really thought, okay, I'm really good at this. I just put my head down and worked every day. I watched games, watched play-by-play, watched the great broadcasters work. I would consistently go over my tape and find ways to improve myself. I read everything, watched everything, interviewed everybody that I could, and I just worked every single day to try to get better. I was the first person at the stadium during game day and the last person to leave. I talked to every player, every manager, every coach, and the security people. I just worked really, really hard. And I didn't really pay attention at that point early on to what people thought of me. I just tried to get better and tried to find my own voice. And I remember one day being called into the general manager's office, and he was excited to tell me that, our show had, risen to number 1. And they felt that, these focus groups that they had really liked me. And I didn't even know what a focus group was at the time. And, it's basically people that the network brings in to ask them to rate the people on the show or on the network. and the people that were in Los Angeles really liked me. And so the show went to number one that I was on. It was called Sports Central. And then the competition over at Fox 11 hired me away from CBS 2. They offered me more money and more prominence on their station. So I went to Fox 11 and did Fox Extra Innings and Fox Overtime. And then those shows went to number one. And finally, I caught the eye of David Hill at Fox Sports Net, who ran that network, and he brought me up to the national level. And then I was on a show called Best Damn Sports Show, period. I was the first woman co-host on that show, and I did the sports updates as well as the sit-down interviews with star athletes. And from there, I got Monday Night Football. So I never really thought, well, I'm great at this. And I never really even, paid that much attention to what people thought at that point in my career. It wasn't until later when I reached the national level where I got a lot of criticism based on what I looked like. All of a sudden, critics were saying, well, she's too pretty. Her hair's too long. She wears too much lipstick. I don't like that she wears red nail polish or something. So all of a sudden, I was scrutinized based on what I looked like rather than the content of my questions. And that's when I realized, wow, I am really in a different place right now with my career. And I'm being, what I thought of then and think now was unfairly criticized based on what I looked like or the fact that I was a former Rams cheerleader or a former model. And for some reason, that really rubbed the critics the wrong way. The sports critics wanted a woman who either came from radio or newspaper reporting that wasn't as glamorous looking as I was. And I was really, really, I think, unfairly criticized back then. So again, this is all in my book, Warrior, My Path to Being Brave. And the reason I talk about it and write about it is that I don't want the next generation of women to be judged solely based on what they look like. I want, and I still want to be judged on the quality and content of my reporting and of my work. If you look great, that's awesome. That's helpful. You're in television, and television is a visual medium, and they expect, most women and men to look put together, to go to makeup before you get on the set. I worked with Al Michaels and John Madden on Monday Night Football, and they were also in the makeup chair before every game. So they had to get their hair and makeup done. So it's not just the women that are subject to this. We all, try to look our best on camera. And, to be a woman, to have the extra burden of trying to look great and also be perfect on camera. Don't make a mistake. Don't misspeak, because if you misspeak, they'll say, see, she's just a bimbo.
Okay. I could definitely see your predicament there. Obviously, I've watched you on Monday Night Football as well as other places, and you were impeccable. You did a fantastic job. Asked the right questions, and that's the other thing: asking the right questions to people when you interview them. I mean, obviously, that's a big issue as well. You had to go through all that, but going back, I remember the days of Monday Night Football when it first started. I was back in the 70s, I believe, and I remember. One day, I always told myself, one day I'm going to be there. I'm going to be like an announcer, or I'm going to do it. Now, it never happened, obviously. I did pretty good, but it never happened. What was it like? I mean, because it's iconic, Monday Night Football. Nowadays you got all that stuff. What was that like the first time you stepped on the field? Okay, and there you are, Monday Night Football, one of the most watched shows at the time. And you're interviewing all these people, talking with all the people on the sidelines and getting involved in just, interviewing and talking about sports and not making a mistake. I mean, how nervous were you?
Well, my first couple of games were preseason games for Monday Night Football on ABC.
Okay.
And my very first game was a Hall of Fame game in Canton, Ohio. And I knew that I was being scrutinized and that a lot of the critics didn't like me already before I said one word. So I knew I was really under the spotlight. But during those first preseason games, I didn't really care. I was just myself. And I, did the interviews the way I wanted to do them. And I had a really cruel producer who was very verbally abusive. But in the first couple of games, I ignored him. what had happened, and by the way, those games went really well for me. I spoke in my own voice. I told the stories I wanted to. I was very confident on camera. So my first 2 Monday Night Football games were great. They were preseason games. But my first regular season game ended with me misspeaking at the end of the game during an interview on the field. And as soon as I misspoke, I realized that I had inverted your former teammate to your teammate. And so I immediately fixed it. But by that time, it was too late. I had handed the critics an opportunity to say that I was terrible, that I was horrible, that I didn't know what I was doing. And so everything from there on was really traumatic for me. I was under an incredible amount of pressure. My boss was yelling at me every day. There were horrible things being written about me in USA Today by people that just said, she's just a bimbo, she's just a model. And they ignored the decade-plus work I had done as a sportscaster. So, being on Monday Night Football was a mixed bag. In many ways, it was a blessing. It was a huge opportunity, and it made me a household name in the world of sports. And through that, I received a lot of other great opportunities. But it also really shook my self-confidence, and I realized how cruel the media could be.
Yeah.
And I suffered a lot of trauma because of that. Again, I write all about this in my book, Warrior, My Path to Being Brave.
Sure.
I want people, especially male sports fans, I want men to read my book because, I don't think a lot of men realize the pressure that a lot of women are under on TV, especially in sports. And some of the things that we have to navigate are really different than what you see on camera. And I think, it's also a fun book to read. There's a lot of really great stories about John Madden that I share, about, Fox Sports Net, Best Damn Sports Show, period, Shaq and Kobe. Like, I have a lot of really fun stories, Dennis Rodman. I've got really fun anecdotes in the book. But there are some serious subjects that I tackle as well. So I think the book isn't just for young women that want to get into the business. It's really for anybody, especially men that are sports fans and people that want to get a sneak peek as to what it's like in the media behind the scenes.
Well, I'm sorry that you went through that because I've watched those shows and I remember you, and I remember you did beautifully. I don't see why there could be a problem. I mean, obviously everyone makes a slip with a word every once in a while because it's just natural, it's normal.
Sure.
But to actually take it to the next level, to the umpteenth level, and basically classify someone as something they're not, that's ridiculous. But my opinion on that was, I saw you, I thought you did fabulous. You did a great job. You were informative, and the thing I liked about you most is that you were yourself. I don't like announcers, and I see it all the time. When you watch an announcer, even today, when you watch people, sportscasters and so on down the line, where they try to be somebody they're not. They change their voice. They try to act as if they're not themselves. They're not the person that we grew up watching. If they're a football player or a baseball player or basketball player, and you saw them and they did interviews, or tennis even, and then now all of a sudden they're totally different. They come in there with a different attitude, different aspect. It doesn't work. You have to be yourself. And I think that's one of the things that you were very good at, was just being yourself. You weren't trying to be anybody else or trying to imitate another sportscaster. You were doing everything possible to, just to be yourself. And I think that's one of the reasons why you skyrocketed so quickly, is because people saw that, And, a lot of it's jealousy. Yeah. Go ahead.
I think it's, you hit on something important, Pete, and that is, that no matter what we're in, whether we're broadcasting or business, what students, whatever we are doing in this moment, it's incredibly important to be authentic and to connect with people that are going to buy your product, people that are going to listen to you teach, people that are going to pay attention to you if you're a broadcaster, people that are going to cast you if you're an actor. It's incredibly important to set yourself apart by being your best self, but really understanding what it is that makes you unique. And I think women especially have a very hard time with this because of social media. So many young women are looking at Instagram and, TikTok and trying to be an influencer or trying to look like somebody else or comparing themselves to Kim Kardashian. And so when I talk to young people, I do a lot of motivational speaking and keynotes for corporations, for businesses, seminars, and also young people. And I always try to tell them this: you are not competing against another young woman. You are competing against the you from yesterday. You want to be better than you were yesterday. And you don't have to compete against anybody. You're not supposed to look like anybody else. You're supposed to be the best version of you.
I agree with that. I remember growing up listening to the news, Walter Cronkite and Dan Rather. I think that's a motto they both emulated and tried to pass on to generations of future journalists. Pardon me, trip of the tongue. What do you think?
Yeah, so I think, right now the country is so divided that you see in the news and on cable news especially this kind of hyper emotional screen fest where, you see these hosts of these news shows trying to amp people up or frighten people with, hashtag fake news. And instead of just reporting the news, I'm an investigative reporter. I work for Inside Edition. I, have done over 650 investigations for the show. And it's really important to me to have the respect and the trust of my viewers. Inside Edition is the #1 syndicated news magazine. We have 5 million viewers a night. We have 12 million subscribers on YouTube. And the reason why we're so popular, I believe, is that people trust us. They trust me to do the investigations and to tell them the truth. I think today on cable news, we see so much nonsense and so much divisiveness.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I think what people would really prefer is to just hear the news and let them make their own decision, and not be told that there are caravans of immigrants coming over the border to try to steal your jobs, or just craziness. Instead, we would really like, in a perfect world, to have our news reporters and anchors just give us the facts and know that we're intelligent enough to be able to make a good decision about those facts.
I agree wholeheartedly. That's why I usually just use BBC News or NPR when I want to know what's going on in the States and the rest of the world at large.
I don't blame you because, there is kind of a no-nonsense approach to news on both of those networks. And on every network, there are good reporters and there are good anchors everywhere. I just think the heads of those networks are really focused on ratings rather than delivering content that is accurate. They would rather have people screaming at each other, and then you get the talking heads and these panels on that amp everybody up and just talk about nonsense. And I think it demeans the public and the voters when they do that. It's demeaning to hear it.
It actually is. And by the way, Josh over here, it wants your autograph. Okay. I mean, he really wants to meet you. Okay. Because he's really impressed. We're all very impressed. But Josh is like, can I ask a question? Can I ask a question? Okay. So it was great to have that answer.
Thanks, Josh. That's nice.
Well, and Josh, I tell you one thing, he doesn't get impressed that easy. I'll tell you, man. I've had some big stars on this show, and he's sitting there going, he's like, ho-hum stuff. It didn't matter. So, really, really good job at that. Now, so let's get into, and you're right about that. Stupid things like this, for example. I do a lot of television and radio interviews for vacation, stuff, basically roller coasters, thrill rides, amusement parks, and also travel advice and so on. If I post something on internet, or in this case on social media, and there's a picture of me at MSNBC, I get people that defriend me that are Fox News people. And if I do Fox News, and I've done it, I've actually done stuff for both Fox News, I've done for MSNBC, I've done for Newsmax, CNBC, Fox Business, and so on. But every time I do that, I know those people get real upset with me because they think I'm one side or the other. Why can't we be in the middle? Why can't we tell the truth, okay, about what's going on? And, not give our own opinion, give the news. And I think that's a big issue. People are, unfortunately, that situation has gotten really out of hand.
Well, part of it is the fault of some of the networks themselves. For example, on Fox News, they admit that they are not news, that they are in fact entertainment, because they've been sued by Dominion, lost millions of dollars, and had to admit that part of their rhetoric was not factual. So that hurts the reputation of Fox News. So that's why a lot of people won't watch it or won't be guests on Fox News, because of some of that, ridiculous rhetoric that led to them losing this massive lawsuit. And there's another one coming up that's going to be very similar that's also going to be painful for Fox.
Yeah.
And believe me, I used to work for the Fox network. I worked at Fox Sports.
Yeah.
Part of the same, corporate umbrella. And there were a lot of those same issues at Fox. If you watched, I don't know if you watched the film Bombshell.
Yes, I was going to bring that up.
The women that used to work. Yeah, the women that used to work for Fox News. Similar things happened to me at Fox Sports, which is why I won't go on Fox News anymore.
Yeah.
And I was on a Bill O'Reilly show talking about one of my investigations years ago. But when I was asked to go on a show recently, I said, no, I'm not going to, because I learned my lesson. And so that's why, people, I think, are allowed to make decisions based on their experiences when those experiences are based in fact. And again, I write in my book, Warrior, My Path to Being Brave, I write about working for Fox Sports and what happened to me. And I name names and talk about specific things, specific incidents that happen. And, and then I let people decide for themselves what they want to think about that. And I trust people that they're going to read my book or other facts and make their own decisions about where they want to spend their time and what networks they want to watch.
That's good. That's good news. Now, Inside Edition, you've been doing that since 2006, and you do a fantastic job there. And obviously they love you because you're there, and you're now chief investigative correspondent for them. Tell me from your end, what is the future of reporting of this industry? Where's it going? Where do you think it needs to go to clean itself up and get to the level of telling the truth and going back to good old reporting as opposed to making up stuff?
Well, one of the things we do, and this is, I think every viewer should really pay attention to this on any show you're watching, any newscast, any network you're watching, consider this. Are you watching people in a studio, a bunch of anchors talking about things, which is opinion-driven news, or are you watching a news show or newscast where reporters are out in the field in different states talking to real people and reporting on real scams or crimes that exist? So on Inside Edition, I travel all over the country and internationally covering investigations, talking to victims, survivors, law enforcement, experts, and of course, chasing bad guys and confronting them. So I am a boots on the ground journalist. I am not in a fancy studio with air conditioning and hair and makeup and perfect lighting. I am out in the field throughout the country reporting on real news, real investigations, real crimes, real scams, real consumer reports. That is what sets our show apart from some of the things that you may see on other networks. And I think that's the future. I think that network executives should spend more time sending reporters to all corners of our country and reporting on real people, using facts and using science and using, actual firsthand accounts from people who are victims or survivors of different events, and not sitting in a studio inviting a bunch of blowhards to bitch and complain about Biden or Trump or whoever. Get your reporters out in the field to cover real news. That's the future.
Thank you so much, Lisa. We do appreciate it. Can you give your website one more time before we leave?
Yeah, you can find me at lisaguerrero.com. That's my website. And you can also book me for speaking events and keynotes. You can buy my book, Warrior, My Path to Being Brave, at Amazon and at bookstores near you. And you can follow me on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. On Twitter, I am at the number 4, Lisa Guerrero. And if you follow me, you can reach out to me there, direct message me. I love to talk about news and politics and sports. Love to talk about sports. Go Rams. So you can contact me everywhere.
Well,
thanks, everybody. And thank you, Pete, for
Lisa,
having me.
thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And we'll be back with Live on Tape right after this. Each year, 5,000 people, including children, choke to death. LifeVac can stop these senseless tragedies. It's so easy to use also. Simply place the mask over face, push, and pull. You'll never regret having a LifeVac in your home or office. Please visit lifevac.net today to protect you and your loved ones. Or you can call them at 877-LIFEVAC. That's 877-LifeVac.
They came from every corner of the country, from small towns and big cities. But they all shared one thing in common. They belonged to a family called Marines, a tough and determined few dedicated to protecting everything we hold sacred. And still, they come. Celebrate the history of those proud few who have earned the title Marine.
And we're back to Live on Tape with Pete Tribuco here at WWDB AM 860 Talk Radio, a Beasley Media Group station. And we have had an incredible guest. If you've missed it, we're still going to talk for a little bit about that. But we had, of course, actress, journalist, sportscaster, model, now chief investigative correspondent for Inside Edition. We've had Lisa Guerrero on, and it's just been an amazing experience. I know, Josh, that you actually were asking questions about her. Just an amazing woman. The things that she has done to create, to actually break that glass ceiling and get women into sports, how hard and difficult that was. What did you think of that interview?
I thought that was one of the best interviews we had. I mean, sports have always been very male-dominated in my experience from, watching baseball. Even with the soccer I like to watch and the not so much volleyball, but definitely soccer. It's definitely, in the past, it was a very male-dominated sport. And I also like the fact in the interview where she was talking about being credible. And to me, being credible is, when you're a journalist, the first 4 things you got to ask yourself are, of course, who, what, where, why, and then getting secondary and maybe even third, source verification. What did you think?
Yeah. Well, I thought that was actually pretty good, that, what you're talking about. But, you left out how, by the way. Who, what, when, why, and how. So, yeah, unfortunately, people aren't following that anymore. It's all about my opinion, okay? And I think what Lisa was basically saying was this. No, tell the story as it is. Don't try to sugarcoat it. If it's this, that, or the other thing, you want to make sure that you get the story right. And to bring that up, we didn't bring this up when she was on, but we also, I don't know if you knew this, but in addition to Inside Edition, okay, which she's been very successful out. And by the way, she also hosted a show on A&E called Secrets of Playboy. Okay. I watched the series. It's amazing. It was an amazing series. And basically it just ended. It talked with all the people that were Playboys, that actually were, I don't know, we call Playgals or Playboys or whatever, but they're Playboy bunnies. There you go. And it told the good, the bad, and the ugly about that industry, and Hugh Hefner and the Playboy Mansion and all that type of stuff. It was a great show. We didn't get the time to actually talk about it. But if you get a chance, folks, okay, I know the series is ended, but if you go to A&E, okay, and maybe go, if you're on cable, and go to the free cable where you can look up some of the old episodes, I'm sure you will be able to stream it or find it. And it's a amazing show. It opened my eyes up about Playboy, about that whole thing. It's called The Secrets of Playboy, and it was hosted by Lisa Guerrero, the one we just talked to. Okay, so what do you think about that?
That's impressive. So when you saw that, what did you think were the good points of that side? I'm curious.
Well, there were some good points. Obviously, you get stardom out of it. You get the ability to, to do what you love to do. You get to the Playboy Mansion. You do all that type of stuff. The downside is, again, it's like everything in life. I mean, it's all political. There's a lot of jealousy going on. There's a bunch of stuff that needs to be, fixed there. And a lot of the people that are actually involved with that, they have a bad taste in their mouth because of what happens there. So it showed all sides of it, basically. And unfortunately, we always think of it as, wow, Playboy was this, and, to be doing that, everything's positive. It wasn't. Okay. There were other things that came out of it that I had absolutely no idea was going on. I had no idea. And it was great to see Lisa be able to explain the other side of it and do that. Did you know, and this is something you probably didn't know, Lisa won 35 National Journalism Awards and honors since becoming Inside Edition's chief investigative reporter as of 2010. She has won all those awards for her work. Do you know anybody like that? I don't know anybody like that that's been that consistent. Oh, and the last thing is, one of her segments that she did was, I think it was on drinking and boating. That's what it was. And it actually had better ratings than other shows, including Anderson Cooper, who's on CNN. So she actually beat out the big guys, okay, when it came to investigative reporting. So just an amazing woman, an amazing story. And that book, folks, is a good one, okay? So you need to go there to get that book.
I will definitely look for it in the bookshelf. So what do you think is the next, investigative issue she should tackle? If you were to choose an investigative issue for her to tackle in the weeks ahead, what would you think?
Well, I think right now, basically, and I'm sure they probably already covered it already, but we've got fentanyl, we've got drugs out there, opioids, which right now is killing more young teenage and young children than anything else. And even though we know about it, and unfortunately, it's to a situation where it's gotten very bad. And I think that the more we talk about that, the more we will understand what to do in those situations, because we're losing too many people because of that.
I agree. I'm trying to think of the last celebrity, if any celebrity, we lost to opioids.
Well, I don't know that many, basically, but obviously, if you want to think about some of the things that have happened in the past, Whitney Houston died, okay? She drowned. Her daughter drowned. Drug overdose, okay? So, I mean, these things are happening all the time, especially if you're like, see, the one thing Lisa mentioned was this. She was in the looking glass, okay? Which meant that if she did something wrong, they were on top of her. And that's everybody. That's everything you do. Any job. It just the stress levels get really high, especially if you're a celebrity or you're interviewing celebrities. The stress levels get extremely high. And unfortunately, a lot of people that have a stress level that's high and there's nothing to, basically, I guess, counteract that, they get into drugs. They want to feel better. They want to forget about their day. They want to forget about things like that. And unfortunately, a lot of celebrities, especially today, are going to be doing that. I mean, cocaine is rampant. You've got, what's the one I just mentioned? Fentanyl is actually rampant. Any type of opioid drug is bad. Yeah, and you can't forget heroin, and you can't forget even marijuana, which is now legal. That's the starting point for a lot of different things there. So, yeah, it's got a good medical use for people, but at the same time, there's also a downside to it as well. So, I think the most important thing is that we need to be more aware of it. I don't think people know how many children we lose a year to that. How many kids and even adults that we will lose to that. And it's all because of stress. It's all because of peer pressure. They're doing it, so you got to do it because you're not cool if you do. So, and you're a different generation. So what's your opinion on that?
Well, I was born in 75. So for us, I would say in terms of the abuses that I mostly saw growing up, it was more alcohol and cigarettes. Where I grew up, there wasn't any of the hard stuff like the cocaine or the heroin. But I was just not one of those people who's like, I like to be in control of myself. I don't like to do stupid things and then pay for it physically and mentally later.
So you're obviously not from Philadelphia, because Philadelphia, New York City, Boston, Miami, Los Angeles. I mean, these places that, you're going to find that a lot. So where are you from, by the way?
I grew up in Haddonfield, New Jersey.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess that, and I've actually been to Haddonfield. So, I spent the weekend there one afternoon. Just kidding. Okay. So, any final thoughts? I think we got a few minutes left. So any final thoughts at this point on that interview? I think it was a great one. I think she's opened up a lot of doors for young people. The fact that it is very difficult for a woman to get into that industry, and she's one of the pioneers that ended up doing that. And the book, by the way, again, I'm going to allow you to talk a little bit, but the book itself is just an amazing book. And everybody, including, she mentioned, not just women. She wants men to read this book so they can see what's going on. And it's straightforward.
I'd agree with that. I'm going to look for that to add because, like I was talking with her earlier, I thought we had a great show, but I've got some memoirs from...
Okay.
Actually, I meant to just tell you, sorry, I paused there. I had to catch my breath. We've got about 3-4 minutes left. So
okay.
I'm going to say right now that besides when I was talking with her about Walter Cronkite and Dan Rather, I actually have some of their memoirs, and I just got a copy of Dan Rather's Thoughts on American Patriotism, which I haven't cracked open yet. Have you read it yet?
No, not yet. Not yet. But when we talk about Dan Rather, we talk about Walter Cronkite, people say, and this is interesting, I don't know if you knew this, but in 1968, when Walter Cronkite, instead of just being a reporter, and he was a great reporter, when he actually said that the war in Vietnam could not be won, okay, this was after the Tet Offensive, which happened that year. That is the day that journalism pretty much died. Because if Uncle Walter Cronkite, could actually go on and say that he feared that the war in Vietnam could not be won, it could be a true statement. And in fact, it probably was a true statement. But he went out of his reporter status or his role as a reporter. He actually went into an area to be a correspondent and basically give his opinion, which is something you really need to not do if you're going to be an investigative reporter or reporter in general. Do you agree with that?
I do. I mean, it's a very hard line to, when you're reporting on an issue, if it resonates with you on some level, to keep that professionalism and not become a part of the story, I think, as they say. I could be wrong.
No, it's true.
Again, that's why, like most of the British journalists, when I'm watching BBC, I'm just admiring their restraint in terms of like, I'm sure on some level you want to say something like as a person, but I'm not going to do it.
Okay, gotcha. And I agree with you. I think BBC actually is good. There are other news outlets out there, and again, if you go to Fox News, you hear one story. Okay, on cable. If you go to MSNBC or CNN, you're going to hear a different story. And it's weird how very few of them are exactly the same. They're different. Like one will be Hunter Biden, the other one will be Trump, and no middle ground. The middle ground's not there. They're either going to harp on this or harp on that. And unfortunately, you're not getting the real news. You need to get somebody like a BBC because they don't really care. I mean, they're talking about the United States. They're talking as a third person. So it isn't like, well, I favor Fox or I favor CNN. Now I'm telling it the way it is because this is England. I don't care what happens really in the United States. I'm not going to put an opinion in. I'm just going to say this is what's happening in the United States, and that's how it goes.
Just wait till the next presidential election, then really see them go at it.
Yes, but this is not a political show. We do not talk politics here. We talk about positive things like the guest we had on. And I think, again, a very important factor is that she actually created the mold for female journalists to go out and do that. And yes, Inside Edition's a great show. Do you ever watch Inside? I watch it all the time. It's just a great show.
I'm not really home that often, so I tend to not to. It's mostly, like I said, just what I can see online. I would say, actually, I meant to also add, besides BBC, I like Al Jazeera.
Okay. All right. Well, I don't really watch that too much, but again, what I try to do is this. When I'm watching these shows, and unfortunately you have to watch them, even ABC, CBS, NBC, they're tainted as well, or they're actually geared towards one side or the other. What you have to do basically is take all the information in and then make your own decision. Sit there, take one show, take another show, put it together, and at that point you have to make a decision based on the information that you're getting. I don't just listen to Fox News. I don't just listen to MSNBC or CNN or even Newsmax. I'll take all the information I get and I'll try to make, basically something out of all of it to try to find out where the truth actually lies. And I think that's about does it for us. On behalf of myself and Josh, we really appreciate it. And we'll be back with Live on Tape again next week. Have a good day.